Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight. A day late and a dollar short, but here we are. And a few things to talk about tonight. Number one, there you go. We could talk Olmsted Falls basketball, I guess, if you want to, but
No, no.
probably not going to spend a lot of time on that. So the big story, I guess, Bam scoring 83. Come on,
Give me
man.
a okay. Hold on a second. So I want to be clear. I did not watch the game because I went to the Olmsted Falls boys game. I did not pay much attention to it. But were like the Wizards trying, or was there some kind of backdoor deal here to get him a lot of points, or was it like these 43 free throws? This is something fishy's going on here, Mike. Something fishy. Like, is this an Emmanuel Class A? Was like someone bet a lot of money on this happening, and now this is happening? Like what? Like this is some backdoor shenanigans going on here. That's all. I mean, it's ridiculous. Come on now, it's something's fishy here. And I'm starting to think if he could score 83 points on the Wizards, I probably could score a basket, right?
Maybe. Well, so the question is, how far down the list of guys that you thought could score 83 points in an NBA game, how far down that list is Bam Adebayo? He's
But
pretty far
Mike,
down,
Mike,
right?
Bam Adebayo wouldn't have been in the top 50. I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I would probably agree. And let's take it another step further. Who would have thought that a guy could score 83 points in today's modern basketball and that guy would only have seven threes, right?
Right. Yeah.
And shoot
How
below.
many did Kobe have in his 81? Do you know the answer to that question?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think it was. I don't honestly. I don't think it was that many. Here I'm going to look up. Let me see if I can find it here while we're talking.
Well,
I
the
don't think
bottom
it was.
line is this: like this is a sham. That's all I'm going to say. It's a sham. Adam Silver better investigate this.
I mean, it's not a sham in a sense of we still
43
have to
free
play.
throws, Mike. 43 free throws. That's more free throws than the Cavs and the Magic combined shooting tonight. I think seven threes. He only hit seven threes. Kobe had seven
Yeah,
threes, Mike.
Kobe 7 of 13, Bam 7 of 22, Kobe 18 of 20 from the line, Bam 36 of 43.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of this. That's
Breaks
nonsense.
breaks the record of 32 free throws that Wilt set with his 100-point night, and somebody else was tied for that. Now I can't remember who he was tied with. It was somebody that I was kind of surprised by. Let me look that.
Shaq,
Let me look that. No. Game. Let's see what we got here. Adrian Dantley was the other guy.
28.
Adrian
Yeah.
Adrian Dantley. So they each had 32. Dantley and Wilt both had 32 free throws made. So anyway, look, going to the line 43 times is ridiculous. I did not watch the game, but just saw some of the highlights and just listened to people talk about it. And clearly at the end of the game, you had the Heat fouling and trying to get Bam back to having possession so that they could get him more points, which look, when a guy gets to that level, right? I think he had 62 at the end of the third quarter. At that point, you might as well go for it and see if you can't try to get there. So I don't fault them for once it kind of gets into goofball territory that
I'm out,
why
Mike.
not go
I'm
for it?
out.
Why not go
I'm
for
out,
it?
Mike. I'm out, Mike. Like I feel like Donovan Mitchell 71 is more impressive than this.
Look, if you take it in context, right? It's you're playing the Wizards who are one of the two or three worst teams in the league. Not only that, they're not trying to win. So you're actively looking at playing guys on the Wizards who don't want to. The Wizards are not trying to win games, so they're not trying to play guys tons of minutes. Like Sar played 20 minutes in that game, who is ostensibly, I would say at this point, the Wizards' best player. So look, Washington's happy to lose the game. Miami's happy to win it. And Bam getting 83 is what it is. Like I said, the most surprising part of it to me was just the fact that it was Bam Adebayo. Because again, I just don't know how I would have had to gone very far down the list. You threw out the number 50. Certainly probably possible. Because again, when we think of Bam Adebayo, we don't think of a guy who is a scorer first, right? That's not his first number one skill that he's known for. And secondly, just not a guy who is a volume shot maker. And to go to the line 43 times is just completely ridiculous. I guess, again, one of us should have gone back and watched the game and see how do you get to the line that many times. Now, to his credit, he went 36 for 43. And I wonder what his career high in threes is. It's probably not much more than 7, I would guess. And look, 83 points is just ridiculous. I think this is the same sentiment I had back when Kobe scored 81 and was still then 19 points shy of Wilt's 100. And now we can say the same thing about Bam, 17 points shy of Wilt's 100, which, if you just think about it, doesn't seem like that much, 17 or 19. But if you think about how rare it is for a guy to score 17 or 19 in a quarter, how many points that is. I mean, if you score 19 in a quarter, that essentially says that you're going to get 76 points in a game. That's the pace you're on. So it just again points out how difficult it is to ever get to 100. I still think that's an unbreakable record, but I also never really foresaw somebody going to the line 43 times in an NBA game. And you just have this situation where teams like the Wizards are trying to lose. And like I said, once a guy gets close, why wouldn't you just try it? What's it matter? Clearly, Miami was going to win the game no matter what. Why not just feed it to Bam every time and let him go to work and try to score once you get to a certain point where it seems like he might have a shot at that. So good for Bam. I know you're out on it. I don't really care one way or the other, but
I'm out.
it still is an accomplishment to score 83 points in an NBA game. I don't care who's on the floor. That's a
Hey,
lot of
so can I
points.
can I tell you can I tell you what it reminded me of?
What's that?
About 7 years ago, I was playing in a rec league. I think you may know this story. Do you know this story?
I don't know. You got to fill my memory
So
here.
Alex from camp,
Yeah.
Alex Rook
Okay.
was on my summer league team. It might have been 8 years ago, and our team was good because we were in the lower division. We were just having fun, and there was a game that we were just that he just got hot to start the game and scored like I want to say he had like 30 points at halftime. And we were just like, we're just gonna keep giving him the ball, keep letting him shoot. He scored 75 points in the game, and we made him take a Wilt picture with the 75, like a piece of note. I ripped out a piece. I had a notebook in my my work bag. I ripped out a piece of paper, and he held up 75 and took a picture of it. That's what it felt like to me, Mike. And we were playing against a terrible team. Like their team was like some big tuxedos, and their shirts were like fake tuxedos. Mike, come on now, this is a joke. It was a joke. It reminded me of that analogy. So that exact parallel in my life. That's what it felt like. And
That's
we're
fair.
a bunch of at that time I was not completely washed. Like we're not good basketball players. We're good basketball players, not nearly the level. But it was just a joke. I don't know. I just thought it was a joke. I'm out on it, Mike.
Understood. Look, it's fine. I don't think it's something that I'm going to be talking about 10 years from now, other than the fact that if somebody gets past 83, then we'll probably come back and revisit the Bam Adebayo 83-point game box score. But it's not going to hold the mythological place in the history of the NBA that certainly Wilt's 100 does. And passing Kobe, who I think Kobe obviously holds a higher place in the history of the game. And so I don't think it even probably surpasses that, even though numerically it surpassed it. I think just the circumstances of this game and where we are in 2026 with the tanking situation and where we are with the Wizards and just the fact that Bam is not necessarily known as this kind of a scorer. I'm happy for him. It's great. It's an interesting story to talk about, but I don't think it really is. I don't really know how to quantify it, I guess is my point here. Great for Bam, whatever. Good for the league to be able to talk about it, but I don't think it really moves the needle, which clearly in your mind it doesn't. And look, all I did was when I saw that pop up yesterday, when I hadn't been on my phone and got on there and saw Bam with 83, I was like, what? How's that even possible? And then you go and you look and you see obviously the free throws. So I don't know. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but kudos to Bam.
Okay, moving on. I'm done with it. All right, the bigger news story has to be Tatum's return, right? That has to be the
Yes.
biggest news story because Mike, I did not watch a minute of the Cavs Celtics game, and I know you were sitting with the uppies on Sunday. You got floor seats. I don't want to know how you got that hook up, but uh, the bottom line is this: he's looked functional. I know he didn't have a great shooting game against the Cavs, right? He did not shoot the ball very well, or accurate.
No,
He,
but that didn't even matter. I can talk a little bit about it. You go ahead and
but
share your
I
thoughts,
mean,
and then I don't want to cut you
the
off. But
fact that he played the first three games, he's playing. Did he play tonight? He played tonight, right? They played tonight,
they
or
did not play tonight.
they play
Boston
tomorrow.
played. They lost. They lost to the Spurs last night, and he played a similar game, 27 minutes, and had I don't know, 18
So
points or so, something
I
like
mean,
that.
basically thinking that when he came back, he was going to be like a 15 to 20 minute restriction. He's playing closer to 30 minutes a game. I mean, if you're the Celtics, you got to be the Celtics have to be the favorite in the East. I don't even know what the NBA East odds are now. NBA East odds, FanDuel, but I just don't feel like anyone can because they've been so good, and now that Tatum's back, like, and they've looked as good as they've looked, and I know they lost the Spurs yesterday, but yeah, the Celtics are the favorite, Mike. The Cavs are second, the Knicks are third, and Detroit is fourth. I think that feels right, although the Cavs lost tonight, but I don't know. I don't know. The Celtics just seem like they're the team that to beat now, which is weird because Tatum's played 3 games, but they were so good without him, and now it's like he just seamlessly stepped in, and all these people were like, "Oh, it's Tatum and Brown's team. How are they going to coalesce and how are they going to work together?" And blah 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 blah. Well, it's just like that he never was injured, and I don't know. I think obviously I think they're missing a big right now with and I don't once again know that Vucevic is the answer to their problems. If a lot of times we often say like if Harden is the answer to your problems, I don't want to know what the question is. I don't know if Vucevic isn't is listen. He's definitely not the answer to their problems. But what's that guy? Quela, that guy Queta, Johnny Queta. That's no, he's plays for baseball. That guy plays baseball. What's his name? Queta. He's played really really well, and I know he's got Zoe Simmons in his corner for sure. Like I've heard Simmons talk about that on this podcast. His daughter's favorite player. With like 4 years ago when he first made the team, they didn't even exist basically on the team. But I don't know. I think the Celtics have to be the favorite. They've looked really good. Tatum looks good. Obviously, uh, they still have to go through a 7 game series, and the fact that the Cavs shot 0 for 14 behind the arc in the second quarter, couldn't make a dang shot. All I know is I at one point saw, and I was just kind of checking the score because I was not watching the game. At one point, the Cavs were down 3, and it was like 26-23, and then later in the first half, it was like 44-28, and I was like, "Ooh, that's not good. What happened there?" And then uh, they obviously the Cavs tried to hang around a little bit. That the game was never in doubt, though. I feel like once we got halftime, it was over. And then I think my big takeaway from I did watch a good percentage of the game tonight, and I did watch the game Monday night. Although the Sixers were basically, I mean, my God, you could have started. All right, but
The Sixers roster was DOA last
yeah,
night. Let's put it that way.
so I think my big takeaway, and my dad's text tonight in the middle of the first quarter. I don't give my dad a lot of credit. Mobley just has to learn how to shoot free throws. He is sucking from the free throw line, and that continued. He shot. I know at one point he was 2 of 8 from the free throw line. What did we lose by? We lost by I don't know,
He was 2 for 7 from the line tonight.
two
Two
for
for
seven.
seven.
Okay, 2 for 7. So and Harden missed 2 free throws. If it wasn't for Keon Ellis in the fourth quarter, who again is playing really really well, like the game's not even close. But I know I'm jumping between the Celtics and the Cavs, but the bottom line is this: I think the Celtics have to be the favorite in the East. Tatum's looked really good. It's going to have ramifications. I still think that the Western Conference is the champions at this current moment. I just still think that between the Spurs and the Nugget, I would take the Spurs, the Nuggets, and the Thunder probably over any Eastern Conference team, honestly. But I think the Celtics are the Eastern Conference favorite right now for sure, and I know that's what it says on FanDuel, but I just in my gut feel that way.
Totally fair. And I think that last week we talked about which teams that myself as a Cavs fan, I tried to put in order which teams I'm most afraid of. And I think I had the Knicks number one and Boston number two and Detroit number three. I think after watching the game on Sunday up close, I think I would probably flip flop that and say I'm more afraid of the Celtics and then the Knicks, although you could probably splitting hairs there. I'm definitely afraid of both teams. I wouldn't feel confident in any way, shape, or form that this Cavs team could beat the Celtics. Here's what I'll say about Tatum. And I know that right now he's shooting sub 40% from the floor in 3 games and sub 30% from three in 3 games. But what I will tell you is that physically, watching him up close from floor seats, there was no discernible anything that made me think if I didn't know that he had been hurt, I would have had no idea that he was hurt. The way he was able to move, the way he was able to elevate, the way he defended, the way he handled the ball, it looked exactly like the Jayson Tatum that we've seen for the entirety of his career. I didn't see any physical adaptations that he had to make, changes to his game. I didn't see him favoring the leg. I didn't see him moving slowly when he was playing defense. I didn't see him favoring this leg or that leg when he was taking off to make moves to the basket. He looked exactly like Jayson Tatum. And again, he didn't shoot the ball well, but he also hasn't played high level basketball on an NBA floor for 10 months. So I would expect that with the remaining 15 games that we have left in the season, that by the time we get to the playoffs, that he's going to be pretty close to being back to being Jayson Tatum that we've seen throughout his career. And then if you look at the Celtics, I know I said last week too that it was hard for me to imagine Boston being able to make it through to the NBA Finals because they traded away Holiday, they traded away Porzingis, they're relying on Peyton Pritchard. Tatum's going to come back, be a shell of himself. And it appears that that's not the case. And then I also watched up close Peyton Pritchard just completely destroy anybody that the Cavs tried to put on him on Sunday. He basically got into the lane whenever he wanted, knocked down open threes, and just basically took anybody that the Cavs tried to put on him off the dribble and created shots for himself or for somebody else. And so seeing that up close was eye opening for me, at least again. It's a 1 game sample size. I still think that over the course of time, there are things you can do with Peyton Pritchard, but he was very impressive in that game on Sunday. When you combine what he's become, how he's developed his game with the way that Jaylen Brown has elevated his game this season in the absence of Tatum, you look at the development of guys like Sam Hauser and Shireman who killed the Cavs on Sunday. All of those guys put together, I think, end up replacing what you were missing. Queta's been way better than I think anybody thought. Luka Garza came in, and although he's super slow on defense, and I don't think he's ever going to be much of an offensive threat, he's at least serviceable. Maybe Vooch comes back. I don't think Vooch answers any questions, like you said, for the Celtics. Is he better than either one of those guys? He's probably a little bit better than Garza because he can shoot it a little bit better from three, but I don't think he moves the needle. But the fact that Tatum came back and honestly looked exactly like Jayson Tatum. I mean, there was nothing that made you look at him and say, "Oh, he's in some way hobbled, he's in some way diminished as a player." And it's remarkable that he goes down in that series against the Knicks, has the surgery the very next day, and clearly from early on, it seemed like he was going to be targeting trying to come back this season. And look, not just you and I, but I think everybody universally thought that this Celtics season was going to go up in smoke and that there wouldn't be a chance for him to come back to a team that actually would have a chance to do something in the playoffs. And clearly, that is not the case. This team, even without him, has been one of the best three teams in the East at worst. And now you throw Tatum back into it, and Boston suddenly becomes a very dangerous team. So I think when you start looking at the East hierarchy, I think Boston has to be favored. Look, the Cavs, that game against the Celtics, they just couldn't shoot the ball. I think they shot 11% from three in the first half. They couldn't get anything to go in. Second half, they tried to come back and just were never able to get back over the hump because they were down, I think, 26 at one point in the third quarter. So understandable that they weren't able to make it all the way back, but just did not play well. And then tonight, that game against Orlando, that felt like a game from the middle of the first quarter. Orlando just is making everything. Bane, I don't know what he ended up finishing tonight, but
Being at 30, he ended at 35 because the season high was 36, I think.
he was
They said
12 for 19 from the floor, 9 of 10 from the line. And I mean, Bane was just unconscious. It felt like every time the Cavs got close or did something, Orlando would throw in an outrageous shot. And I just felt like that was a game they were going to lose even from early on in the first quarter. It just felt like one of those games where, oh, we're not going to defend and Orlando's going to make a bunch of crazy shots. I still think that this Cavs team, you brought it up with Mobley, 2 for 7 from the line. That's becoming a problem. He's down and shooting in the low 60s from the free throw line. Zach Lowe mentioned
63%, I
it.
think.
Yeah, Zach Lowe mentioned it that there was a possession at the end of, I believe it was the third quarter, maybe, in that game where the Celtics intentionally fouled Mobley when he came up to set a screen when they were trying to get a not a 2 for 1, but they were trying to get an extra possession instead of letting the Cavs run it down to the end of the shot clock, and instead they just fouled Mobley, thinking that he's a poor foul shooter. Maybe he makes 1 or 0, and I think Mobley ended up making both free throws, so it didn't really pay off, but could have where Mobley misses one or misses two, and now the Celtics get that extra possession to be able to try to score. And I think he's starting to float into that territory where fouling Evan Mobley is a lot better move than letting him dunk on your head. And that becomes a problem if you're not
It's like he's
shooting.
got the yips, man. He's got the yips right now.
You got to shoot 70%. And it's not like Mobley doesn't have, look, I know he's not a great 3-point shooter, but it's not like his form is jacked up or he doesn't have a smooth release when he's shooting the ball. He should be able to shoot a better percentage than
Well,
63% from the foul line.
he like shot 73% last year, Mike. So
Yeah, he
he
should
can
be
do
able.
it.
I know he should be able to, and it's a problem. It's a problem when he doesn't. So that is what it is. I like a lot about this Cavs team. There's a lot of things I like. Honestly, the James Harden experience has been surprisingly fun to watch because he's moved the ball and even his dribble sequences so often have like he must have cooked Paolo tonight 4 or 5 times off the dribble, and then just beat him right into the lane and finish with the floater. And as you said, his passing has been tremendous. This version of James Harden that we're seeing right now is the idealized version of what he can
Theoretical
be.
James Harden.
This is theoretical James Harden, right? He's not over monopolizing the ball on offense. He's mixing up shooting threes with getting to the basket. And defensively, he's at least engaged. Like I'm watching him and he's never going to be a great defender on the perimeter. And he gets lost on screen sometimes and he gets beat. But I will say that I see effort and
He's Mike, he's not been the problem when they've lost. He's not
no, I
they have
agree.
not lost. Like tonight,
I
he had
agree.
30 points, 11 of 16 from the field, 5 of 9 from behind the arc, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. He did have 4 turnovers, but I mean, he's still doing everything else. Like I look at Mitchell's stat line. Mitchell's terrible tonight. 9 of 24,
Not the Harden was not the problem. Harden has not been the problem. Harden has been a positive
Your boy Dean
impact.
Wade had a good game, Mike.
Yeah, Dean Wade.
20 minutes,
And
0 points, 0 of 2 from the field, and 5 rebounds. So you're telling me that he was on the floor for 20 minutes and he took 2 shots? He did have a block,
I'm
though.
I'm not sure what look. I understand. Dean Wade is another theoretical Dean Wade. Theoretical Dwayne Wade. Theoretical Dean Wade can shoot threes. Theoretical Dean Wade can defend multiple sized. I don't want to say multi position, but he can guard guys bigger than him, smaller than him. He's a multi-dimensional defender. Theoretically, I have no trust whatsoever in Dean Wade in big games and big moments. I just don't. I don't think he's going to come through offensively, and as a result, I don't think his defense is that incredibly stout that you can afford to have him out on the floor when he's going to give you nothing on offense in order to have his defense on the court. I just don't think that you have that benefit of putting him out there. Now, again, if Jared Allen is back, then you play Mobley and Allen together, and maybe Wade's minutes are a little bit lower. Larry Nance has no role on this team. I'm not really sure why they can't find a way to
Or why is Naquan
play Larry.
Tomlin not playing more? Like he was
Right.
Tomlin had been playing a lot of minutes, and now all of a sudden he's not playing any minutes. Like that's a little bizarre to me, a little bit.
I agree. I think that, look, that position, whatever you want to call it, if it's the three, I guess, the 3.5, Tyson to play that spot, the Cavs are a little small, which is why I think they want Dean Wade to take over in the starting lineup. But Wade has to be better, and I just don't have confidence that he's going to be in the moments that it matters. And that's what it comes down to for the Cavs. I keep saying it. I just think when push comes to shove, I just don't know if this team has enough urgency from a mental and physical toughness standpoint to just buckle down, bear down, and say, we're not going to allow this to happen. Like, I could tell this kind of game was coming, like I said, midway through the first quarter. And I don't know what they saw, what they thought, but it just looked like Orlando's going to make all kinds of shots. We're not necessarily going to put forth the type of defensive effort that is necessary to stop those shots. And consequently, you lose what amounts to a shootout. And I just think there's too many games that this team plays like that. All that being said, the best version of this team, if you put Jared Allen back in this lineup, I do think this team, since they got James Harden, has a higher ceiling. I know there's 17 years of evidence that says that it's delusional to think that this version of James Harden that we're getting is the same one that we're going to get in the playoffs. But who knows? maybe maybe we'll be wrong. I think more than likely we'll be right. And this team, again, I'll be stunned if they make it to the NBA finals. I now see the path for Boston to make the NBA finals. And I don't see a path for those other teams. I don't see how the Knicks make it with Towns and just everything that goes on with the Knicks inconsistencies. Detroit has obviously fallen off and lost four in a row and only have one shot creator in Cade. And this Cavs team, the best version of it, could certainly win the East. But
So here's my question, Mike. Here's my question. So at this
okay,
point, the Cavs are pretty much settled into the 4 spot. They're in the 4-5 game, I think. Is Boston going to catch Detroit, Mike?
the loss to the Spurs last night was big because I think now they're 3.5 back. So they could, but I don't think it's super likely. I think Detroit will right itself. There's enough teams that are losing games on purpose that Detroit's going to find enough wins to be able to stay ahead of the Celtics. I mean, when you look at it, the Magic are closer to the Cavs than the Celtics are to the Pistons. So part of you says, well, Cavs could move up to 3. I think if you're the Cavs, one, you're disappointed. You're disappointed to see the Magic in the 5 spot right now. So I would not be excited about a Cavs Magic first round series. I said this way back early in the season. There's no team really, in all honesty, that I would feel good about the Cavs playing in the first round. like there's nobody that I would say, like last year you felt like when they played Miami that it wasn't going to be a series, right? And it turned out not to be. I don't know, man. If they play Orlando, and I know Franz isn't back, but maybe he comes back, but Orlando's won 5 in a row. Miami has won 6 in a row. Toronto's probably the team you would want. Philly right now is a shell of themselves, but if they somehow get Maxey and Embiid back, like I said, Philly's not making a run to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if those guys are healthy for 5 out of 7 games in the first round, who knows? Atlanta's won 7 in a row. Charlotte's 7-3 in their last 10. I don't think there's an easy series where it's going to be a walkover 4-0 where you're going to blow a team out 4 times the way the Cavs did with Miami last year. I'll be worried about any first round series. And like I said, Toronto is probably the team you'd most want to play, and they beat the Cavs pretty soundly early in the season. So I don't know. You want to stay in the 4 spot, right? Because you want to play Detroit in the second round. You don't want anything to do with Boston or
Unless
the
unless
Knicks.
Boston somehow catches Detroit, right? That's the rub right
Okay.
now. Like,
Okay. So then the ideal scenario, if Boston is going to pass Detroit, then if you're the Cavs, then you want to get to number 2, right? Then you want to pass,
or three.
right? But ideally 2, because then you'd have the home court against.
Well, you're not going to catch Detroit, Mike. That that
Yeah, I
that
guess.
that ship
Yeah,
has
yeah,
sailed.
yeah. I
Three.
guess you're
I
not
mean,
gonna.
they're only what they're after their loss tonight. They're what, a game behind New York, right? They're a game
Yeah,
behind New York.
game behind the Knicks. Yeah, yeah. So I
So
guess
that's
you get to.
tenable.
Yeah, I guess you get to the 3rd seed. So yeah, look, I think you don't want to play Boston. You don't want to have to play Boston and New York. That would be my feeling if I was the Cavs. I would much rather figure out a way to play Detroit and one of 2, Boston and New York, not both. And it would clearly be better for the Cavs if Boston and New York played each other in the Eastern Conference semifinals. But again, I just don't the confidence that I have in this Cavs team in the playoffs. I don't trust it. I don't trust the urgency and the we're not going to lose this game. We're going to do what it takes to fight and to win. And I know, look, watching my own team, and you tend to pick out their flaws and see all the things that are wrong, and you can look up and down the entire league and pick out what's been happening to teams. But this team, based on the last couple of playoff runs and where they're at now, and the James Harden history, I just don't trust it, man. I don't trust it, Jay.
Yeah. We'll have to see if they can keep it up, if they can like figure it out. I mean, the bottom line is this: if Allen comes back, if Strus comes back, and he got assigned to the charge today, and it seems like he's going to play. Like, but once again, how much am I going to rely on Max Strus? I guess that's like, I don't know. I just feel like, you
He's a
know,
shorter.
it's it's
He's a shorter Dean Wade.
it's a sad state of affairs when the most fire I saw from a guy tonight was Thomas Bryant. I mean, and I'm not saying like not everyone has to have Thomas Bryant fire and vigor, but like, and I felt like James. Like, once again, I want to be clear here. I'm fully in the camp. Tonight's loss was definitely not in James Harden's lap. It didn't even close. Not even close in his lap. Um, but that's my biggest concern right now is the lack of fire from some of the guys, I guess. So we'll have to see.
Let me
We'll
ask
have
you
to see how.
this. I don't want to go into more discussion, but just let me
No,
ask you this: Are the Cavs more likely to get to the NBA Finals or lose in the first round? Which one's more likely? What do you how do you break the percentages down?
I I think they're more likely. I don't think they lose in the first round, so I think they're more likely to make the NBA Finals. I don't think it's I think it's a 10% chance they make the NBA final, or I think it's a 15% chance they make the NBA Finals, and I think it's a 10% chance that they lose in the first round. I don't see them losing to the wherever they fall. I don't see them losing to any of the teams that are below them. I know we lost to one of those teams tonight. I just don't believe it. I don't. Yeah, 7-game series. Orlando, you said it. You said it best. Orlando shut the lights out tonight. We didn't play well. Didn't have Jared Allen. Just no. They're more likely to make the NBA Finals than they are to lose in the first round. There's no way they lose this. This team loses in the first round. Like zero chance.
You are overly confident, man. I put it at even odds. I could see either scenario. I almost think it's more likely they lose in the first round than it is they get to the NBA Finals. I just don't trust this team. So, all right, before we move on, can I just share a couple of observations from sitting on the floor? So, just to let you know and to let our audience know. So, my sister-in-law works for UPS, and my former brother-in-law, who she was married to, is one of her UPS clients. And so they were entertaining a guy who was ostensibly going to try to become a partner or get hired by my ex brother in law's company. So, anyway, they had another extra floor seat out of four. So, I was sitting at the scorer's table by the Cavs bench. So, when the players come and check in, their hand cream and chalk is right in front of us on the scorer's table. And then they were sitting down in front of us. So, just a couple of quick observations from sitting on the floor. I haven't sat on the floor. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever sat on the floor at Rocket Mortgage. When the Cavs played at the Coliseum a long time ago, I had a friend in high school who his dad had floor seats. And so I sat on the floor relatively frequently as a high school kid, but I have not been on the floor. I've been close to the floor in the lower bowl, but I have not sat on the floor for a long time. And so a couple of observations just from that. One is I think you forget when you watch a game on TV or when you watch it from high up in the arena that these dudes are just regular people. And that's the thing that you forget that you don't get to see when you're watching it on TV, when you see it from far away and you get to hear them talk to each other. You get to hear the interactions between players and coaches, between players and referees. And that's number one is you just forget that they're human beings. The second thing is that NBA players are so well regulated emotionally that whatever happens in a game, they just handle it like a professional and keep going because they've come to realize that there's 82 regular season games and you can't be going crazy, good or bad, emotionally
Unless your name's
every
Luka
single night.
Doncic.
Every single night for 82 games. You just can't. Now, that doesn't mean guys aren't complaining to officials. That doesn't mean there isn't emotion in the game. But what I mean by that is so if you think about, let's say, a college or a high school game, right, that went the way the first half went for the Cavs against the Celtics, where Boston gets hot in the second quarter. The Cavs miss. What'd you say they were in the second quarter? 0 for
Oh, for
14 from
14.
three or whatever. So they can't make anything. If that happens to a high school team or a college team, you would see heads down. You would see guys getting angry. You would see a coach looking flustered. You would just see a range of, you could clearly feel and see the emotion if that type of shooting performance or dramatic swing in a game happened at the high school or the college level. At the NBA game, those guys just kept playing. And on both sides, Boston wasn't celebrating wildly because they were suddenly up by 25 points. The Cavs weren't hanging their heads or yelling at each other or pouting, or every time Boston made one or they missed, they weren't throwing their hands up and getting all upset and panicked about what was happening. It's just like we got to keep playing. And even though the Cavs didn't come all the way back and win, they did climb back into the game where at least it made it interesting in the fourth quarter, which if you look at most NBA games where a big lead, one team gets out to a big lead, eventually equilibrium kind of returns. And even though the team may not come all the way back and win it, oftentimes, at least if it's a competitive game, we're not talking about one of these tanking situations, you have a case where the team that's down usually starts playing better. The team that's up, that was hot, maybe starts to cool off a little bit, and the game kind of comes back into equilibrium. But I was just struck by the fact that all these guys are serious about what they're doing And yet at the same time, they are totally regulated in terms of their emotions because they know they have to do it 82 games a year, if that makes any sense. And so I think that points to, again, when I think about this Cavs team, right? You want a team to be emotionally regulated. You want guys who are not getting too high or too low. And yet there's a part of you that wants it to mean more. And yet I see why it doesn't in the regular season just because of the sheer volume of games. But the best players, the best guys can figure out what it takes to be able to drive their performance to a higher level in the playoffs. And that's what the Cavs haven't been able to do. And it remains to be seen whether they'll be able to. So that was number one, just the emotional, just kind of even keel.
Mike, I just want to note you said you were going to keep it brief, and it's been 7 minutes, and you're on number one. So you're doing a good
I'm
job,
sorry.
Mike. You're doing
I'm
a
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Second thing was the amount of time when guys are guarding the ball that players have to use their peripheral vision to be able to see where the ball screens are coming from. So often when a guy was guarding a ball handler, especially at the top of the key, they were not even looking at the guy that they were guarding. They were kind of staring off into the space to either side, trying to get a feel for where is that screen coming from. And it was kind of jarring in some ways to watch just where guys' eyes were on the defensive end of the floor. They were very rarely looking at the player that they were guarding in terms of the guy guarding the ball handler, because so often they're just waiting for who's coming up to nail me with a screen. And I thought that was pretty interesting as well. And then the other thing is that I know we complain about Luka and other guys who are talking to the officials all the time, but there is a lot of talk with the officials that is much more quiet and less demonstrative than what we see with some of the best referee baiters and complainers. And honestly, Kenny Atkinson spent a lot of time complaining to the officials. Harden kept going in and shooting his little runner floater and getting bumped after he released it and ended up on the floor. That happened to him tonight against Orlando too. And Kenny Atkinson kept complaining and arguing for those calls as well. So just the interaction and banter back and forth between players and officials. And then the last thing is when Donovan Mitchell was on the floor and checking into the game, even when he was sitting on the scorer's table right in front of us, he was calling out things that as the Celtics were bringing the ball up the floor, he was calling things out that the Celtics were running and trying to point out to guys where they should go and what was going to happen. And so I thought that was, again, kind of interesting too. You see how the best guys, you saw his leadership, that not that there weren't other guys talking and trying to lead, but certainly you saw that from Mitchell. So those are the three things that I noticed from sitting close that struck me, again, as a different experience watching the game there as opposed to watching it on TV or watching it from the upper deck.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike. That was good insight. I sat on
There
the
you go.
floor one time in my life.
Okay.
That was it. So
All right.
I sat with my wife, who gives two craps about basketball. She hates basketball. Do you know what? Have I ever told you my wife's hate for basketball? Do you know why she hates basketball so much?
No, why?
Squeaky shoes.
Okay, there you go. Well, my my coach at Kent, Coach McDonald, he loved the squeaky shoes. He told us one time we all thought he was going to quit when we were practicing at Toledo, and he called us all together and he was talking about squeaky shoes, and we thought he was going to walk away because our shoes weren't squeaking. And he said, "One day I'm going to have a team again that I can hear the squeak of the shoes." So he was the antithesis of your wife in that case. So
All right. I guess the next thing to talk about is the MVP conversation over, Mike.
I
He's
think it's
got
over. It's
SGA
over.
is the winner as long as he has 65 games, right?
I think that win over the Nuggets. Great game, by the way. Great finish with the 4-point play at the one end, sandwiched in between the two Shea step back threes, which again were just crazy, ridiculous shots with guys with their hand right in his face and just complete center of the basket swish for SGA. And I think they didn't play tonight, but the
They
next
play
game
tomorrow
he
night. They
will.
play tomorrow night.
So tomorrow night
Celtics
he'll break.
tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow night he'll break the Will Chamberlain record of most consecutive games with 20 points in a row, which I forget it's up in the hundreds. I can't remember
100. I thought it was
exactly
like
what the numbers.
100. I think 103, 107, 13, something like that.
Something like that. It's over 100. I can't remember what it is, but that is remarkable. And we've talked a little bit about Shea before, but the one thing that I think is different about him compared to maybe guys that I think about, because like Shea's highlights are just not, they're not above the rim. And so, not that Jokic's are, but when I think of a player of SGA's type, in other words, his position and a guy that scores, you think of guys who are explosive, who are getting to the rim. You think of like an Anthony Edwards, or you think in the past, you think of a Kobe, you think of a Jordan, you think of a Dominique, those kinds of guys who are just athletic scorers. And Shea really isn't that. He's craft and skill. And I know people want to call him a foul grifter, but as I've said many, many times, the ability to draw fouls is a skill that not every player has, and he clearly has it. And the guy just gets to whatever spot he wants to get to. And in a similar way to Michael Jordan, the defense that you play on him doesn't seem to have much effect on whether or not the shot goes in or not. He either makes it or he misses it, regardless of what your defense is on a given possession. And he's just shooting a ridiculous percentage for the amount of points that he's scoring. His 3-point shooting continues to get better. His playmaking, he had 15 assists and no turnovers in that game against Denver. And I just think that because of where Oklahoma City is at the top of the NBA in terms of record and what he continues to do, and the fact that Jokic is probably going to be ineligible, although he could play the rest of the games for this season, but he hasn't been nearly as good since he came back. And look, we're holding Jokic to a ridiculous standard. And I still think push comes to shove, Jokic is still the best player, but Shea has closed that gap. And because of where Oklahoma City is in the standings and just what SGA is doing statistically for the best team in the league, I don't see how he doesn't win it if he plays enough games
Yep.
to be eligible. I just don't see how he doesn't get it. In all honesty, I think Wemby's probably number 2 at this point, just because of how Denver's fallen in the standings. I don't know
So that's a
how do you see it.
so that well I was gonna say that was the next that's a good transition, Mike, because my next question was we we sit here and we watch the way that they came back in that game, San Antonio, and the way the Wemby led them, and then him we talked about him being the all-star game and being the real MVP of the all-star game because he made it competitive by carrying, and him just breaking down after that comeback win and crying and just being so elated. I mean, this is not something that we've seen in recent memory with basketball players, right? Like, yeah, they care, but we're talking about a regular season game when, I mean, once again, we there's 82 of them, right? Then you talked about regulating their emotions. Well, that just all happened naturally for Wemby. And listen, I I give a he's got to be top 3 MVP. He's going to win the Defensive Player of the Year as long as he has the 65 games, which I think he's getting. He's going to get. The ceiling for him is crazy. As long as he stays healthy, that's the big thing, right? As long as he stays healthy, the ceiling for him is big. I think it's probably Shea. I think it's hard to bump Jokic, Shea, Jokic, and then Wemby is probably 1, 2, 3. In my opinion, I think it still has to be Jokic as long as Jokic is at the 65 games. But ultimately, what matters is like what Wemby's doing for the game. Hopefully, rubs off on other people a little bit. I don't know. I've not once I think back to Luka in his early years. I really thought Luka was going to be someone that was going to continue to like galvanize and get people to really. But I think Wemby's the guy, Mike. I think Wemby's the guy because I, you know, I can't say for certain that he hasn't argued with officials, but I don't feel like he's sitting there being demonstrative. I feel like if anything, he gets mad at himself. I just enjoy watching him play when I can. I think, you know, like I said, his ceiling is so high, and what he's doing offensively, defensively, that reverse dunk he had on the break is ridiculous. The way he just plays with so much emotion and caring and wanting to be the best player he can be on, and not be, he doesn't have to score 83 points in a crap game against the Wizards to you can tell that he's making an impact in the game. He's enjoying the game and he loves the game. And I think that's the big thing. Like you clearly see it. Like when I watch Luka Doncic, do I think Luka Doncic loves basketball? I don't
Doesn't
know
look
that.
like it.
I don't. It doesn't look like it. When I watch, you know, I think LeBron loves basketball. I, he clearly he loves basketball. It gave him everything, and I mean, all these guys should love basketball, right? But when I watch Wemby play, I know that he loves basketball. I don't think Jokic loves basketball. He just is good at it. He loves horses, Mike. He loves horses. He wants to ride his horse. I'm just saying. I think Wemby. Do you know anyone in the NBA that loves basketball more than Wemby, Mike? Like based on his reactions and how he acts.
So here's what I will say is when it comes to Wembanyama, one, anything that he has said publicly since he has been in the spotlight has emphasized the fact that he wants to be the best that he can possibly be, right? He wants to maximize who he is as a basketball player. He wants to be among the greats. Not everybody says that, not everybody wants that. So the fact that he is saying it publicly at 22, 23, 24 years old is makes him stand out from other guys. That's definitely part of it. Probably most guys who get to that level want to be great. There are different levels of want to be great. And he, I think, is at the highest level. And what's interesting about Wembanyama is that right now he's a guy who's averaging 24 and 11. He's shooting 50% from the floor. He's shooting 36% from three. And he's a dominant offensive player. And yet, the first thing that I think about when I think of Wembanyama is what he does defensively. So as we move forward in his career and think about what this first real playoff experience for the Spurs is going to be this year, what his potential is and the ceiling of what he can be is, I think it's unlimited. And you said it best in terms of the injuries is the one thing that you worry about with a guy that size. Historically, guys with bodies that big have a harder time staying healthy than guys who are smaller. And so, fingers crossed that Wembanyama can stay healthy for 10 years, 12 years, however long we can get of this guy, just to see what his ceiling is, because we've never seen anybody like him. And I think, could he creep ahead of Jokic in the MVP race? Maybe if the Spurs somehow were to pass Oklahoma City, maybe he could even win it. I don't think so. I think it's SGA's to lose. I know we talked about SGA for a minute, but I think it's worth just talking about his statistical shooting percentages very quickly. Shea's shooting 55% from the floor as a guard who's not really dunking the ball very often. He takes a lot of mid-range twos where he just gets to a spot. So 55% from the floor, 38% from three, and 89.5% from the line. So he's a 55, 38, 89 shooter, scoring 31 points a game, and he's a plus defender. Is he a complete lockdown best defender on his team? Probably not, but he's a plus defender. And I think that when you talk about the two-way factor of Shea, Jokic obviously not the defensive player that these two guys are, but Jokic is a great rebounder, which helps with his defensive percentages. And I feel like Joker, he's been a little down defensively, maybe effort wise, but in the past, especially in Denver's playoff runs, he's been, I would say, a neutral defender because he just has his hands in all the right places. He's so smart. And even though he's not
Yeah.
a rim protector, he just knows where to be, and he has quick hands, and he gets steals, and he knocks the ball away, and he just gobbles up every defensive rebound, which makes it even better. So I think if I had to bet right now, I'd bet on Shea 1, Jokic 2, Wemby 3, based on where the standings are today, which is kind of where I expect them to finish up. I think Oklahoma City is going to hold off San Antonio for that 1 seed, and then who knows where Denver will end up. They're 6th in the West right now. They could probably finish anywhere from 6th to 3rd. All those teams are within a game of each other at this point. So we shall see.
Just see. All right, Mike. Anything else tonight?
I think those are the main storylines that we
Go
needed to hit.
Bulldogs.
The
That's my.
There you go.
Go Bulldogs.
There you go. So we had, I don't know if you were you watching the scores at all? So Utah was beating the Knicks. Let's see, at halftime they were up 65-56, and then they got outscored 40-29 in the third and 38-23 in the fourth. Kudos to Utah for an excellent tank job. It does look like the NBA is going to, from everything that is coming out, that there's going to be some changes to next year's lottery slash draft slash whatever it is going to be in the
Well,
season to
the
try to prevent
Pelicans
some tanking.
Pelicans reverse tank job tonight, Mike. They beat the Raptors.
But the Pelicans can't be tanking because they don't have a pick, so it doesn't matter. So they can Pelicans are trying to win, baby. Pelicans are trying to win.
Okay. I mean, they're only 9.5 out of a playoff spot.
I don't think they're gonna. I think the West playoffs are pretty much set. I don't think there's going to be much change out there in terms of the play-in situation in the West. I think is pretty locked in. I don't. I guess Phoenix could potentially, although again, I think Booker's still out, Dylan Brooks is out, so it seems hard to believe that they're going to pass Denver, who they're only a game behind. But it seems pretty likely that. I mean, clearly the Clippers, Warriors, and Blazers are all going to finish 8, 9, and 10 in some order. And Phoenix, I'd say, is most likely to stay in that 7 spot.
Mike. You know what's Houston being third is crazy to me.
It is when you think about all the angst surrounding the Rockets and how people have said they haven't really been playing that well. But then again, you look at the other teams, right? Nobody really believes in this Lakers team, and they still continue to hang around and currently in the 4th seed. Minnesota probably has the highest ceiling, lowest floor of these 3 teams. It seems like Minnesota can beat a really good team one night and then the next night lose to a tanker without any problem. And then Denver just has been blah since Jokic came back. It feels like they're a team that's just kind of hoping to get healthy and be ready to go full bore when the playoffs come. So I don't know. I think the West, to me, the West looks the play-in. I think the teams that are in the play-in right now are going to be the teams in the play-in, and then who knows what's going to happen through the 3 through 6 seed. And then in the East, I think the play-in is probably, well, I think
No.
Philly, Atlanta, and Charlotte, I think are going to end up in the play-in, and then Orlando, Miami, and Toronto battle it out for the 5,
Hey,
6, 7.
kudos to the East though, Mike. Right now, all the teams in the playoffs are at 500 or above. Kudos to the East.
I agree. I think the East is deeper. The East is definitely, I think, deeper. I think if you look at the first round playoff series in the West, the only team I would be afraid of in the play-in is the Clippers, and even them, I'm not sure that any of the top 4 teams should be very afraid of.
Garland's look better. Come on, man. I'm joking. We're good. All right.
We can.
Okay, so next week. So here's what we're gonna do. Next week's podcast, Mike. I'm telling you here. We're gonna go through the matchups as they currently stand.
Okay. All right.
And we'll pick based on the road that they have who would win. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we do the Eastern Conference next week because that's pretty set. I think I feel pretty confident it's relatively set, and then we do the Western Conference the week after that because the Western Conference is more volatile in my opinion. I don't know. So
The three
maybe that's what we
the
do next
three
week.
through six is definitely volatile in the West. They're all separated by a game and a half, and whereas the East has a little bit more. The East is bunched up from 5 through 8, and actually 5 through 9 because Atlanta's only another game behind that, and Charlotte, I guess, if they continue to stay hot, maybe they could creep their way into the discussion of getting up out of the play-in. But anyway,
Well,
all right.
Atlanta's just as hot as Charlotte, Mike.
I know Atlanta's won 7 in a row. Atlanta's been playing very, very well, and that's why they are slowly creeping up. Philly's the team that's been down. Philly's 5-5, and Toronto's 4-6. So those two teams in the East have been the two teams that haven't been playing very well. And the Cavs are 5-5 in their last 10, despite the fact that it felt like they were kind of turning a corner. And maybe the Cavs are just playing possum to try to make sure they stay in that 4 seed. But they better be careful whenever they've tried to play the shenanigans and try to get themselves slotted into a particular spot. I could see them staying at 4, and suddenly all of a sudden Boston creeps up into 1, and then you got Boston in the second round. So just play, Cavs. Just play and see what happens. So, all right, let's leave it
Yep.
there.
Alrighty.
Thanks to everyone for listening tonight. Really appreciate it. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. All right.